Hey there, it's been a while. I was away for some time, not because I was taking a break, but rather a devastating news hit my family. You might have seen a post I made over a week ago, but no worries, I am doing all better now. All I'm saying is, thank you so much for your care and understanding. Without you guys, I wouldn't be where I am today. Anyways, Luna 6's live stream is packed. I know the update in itself is half filler since the highlight of the update is the new event, but trust me, that's not the main dish of the update. It's the Temple of Space. I won't lie to you guys, I saw the link of this already, but only the map and the name of the said place. I didn't see anything else beyond its naming and the place itself. I don't know the lore. All I know is that it's related to Asmodee. There are a lot of things to unpack here, and in today's video, we'll explore what we might learn about the space of Asmodee and some potential lore about everything else that we can learn in this game. As always, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Neko Gitsune, and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. Okay, so let's start with Dolmanport itself. We learned from Liben about this place from the last Marvelous Merchandise event that Dolmanport is a place filled with flowers and cargo shipping. The flower part is new, but the cargo shipping part was revealed a long time ago, all the way from version 1.5, where Eula and Yanfei once stopped the Abyss Orders' activity that was ravaging at the port. Eula also said that she occasionally went on patrol back and forth from Mondstadt City to Dolmanport, so we can expect an anecdote from her. Currently, Frederica and presumably Seamus, Jean and Barbara's divorced parents, were stationed here by Farka to protect the area from any impending doom, and we get to see Seamus' model reveal. Based on the kind of model we're given, it's very likely that he is not playable, but again, one can only cope and hope. Liben revealed there used to be a sanatorium up in the hills near Dolmanport. From what he said, that sanatorium is on top of this hill where the statue of the Anima Archon resides. Funnily enough, this statue actually has some interesting lore that has been haunting the lore community for years now. If you don't know, the statue has an ancient writing written in Teyvat letters, read as the Gateway of Celestia. That said, when the voice actor said we'll be visiting the Temple of Space, we are literally going somewhere within Celestia's domains, which is insane. We are literally at the endgame now, so it's actually quite exciting that we finally get to feel the first step of the Heavenly Principles' domains. Within this space, there are 3 different spaces from different nations: Luyang Academy from Liyue, Desert Pavilion from Sumeru, and Mahavipulya Chamber, which apparently is a combination of everything. I find it weird that they named it Mahavipulya because it is a word from an ancient Indian letters or Sanskrit, meaning great extensive. Sanskrit is also a huge inspiration used for Sumeru's language and places, with Nabu Malikata's domain, Pushpavatika, being one of them. Regardless, I personally never heard of Luyang Academy from the lore, and if I have to make a guess, it's likely related to Guhua and Chenyu Vale because every single mind-boggling Liyue lore bomb always goes back to that place. We know an existing academy named Tongwang where Cookie and Yanfei used to study at, but that's about it. However, I do know about Desert Pavilion because we actually got a lore talking about just that, which is Wanderer's best slot artifact set called Desert Pavilion Chronicle. The story of this artifact set actually talks about the kingdoms of Sumeru Desert, more specifically the fall of Gurabat when King Deshret succumbed to madness, but takes place before the forbidden knowledge spread across Sumeru. I won't lie, the whole thing is mind-numbing, but thankfully, Silicon14 made a great video talking about this artifact specifically, so I highly recommend you to watch that if you need full context. Lilupar played a huge role in Gurabat's downfall, and it seems the Desert Pavilion being mentioned in that artifact is indeed referring to Gurabat. The city fell into a huge chasm and Lilupar succumbed to the abyss. At the end of her world quest, she returned to the gates of Gurabat and vanished, leaving the traveler with an empty genie lamp that you can use as a floating companion. Judging from what is said, it seems Gurabat has a similar case with the chasm and Enkanomiya, where the city is now deep underground. But knowing that the Temple of Space has this specific architecture, it's very possible that this area is indeed, or at least, a part of Gurabat. If we get to visit this place, there are few people that we could potentially beat, that being Shiruye, Shirin, Parvez Ravan, and possibly Lilupar. I only say this because Historia, one of the NPCs that we'll talk to in this quest, hails from all the way when the already corrupted Nibelang came to Tevat. Since we'll be visiting this place for Mondstadt, I would assume that Historia likely came from an ancient civilization of Arcadia. That said, it's possible that a lot of the NPCs in this quest came from different timelines. If anything, I won't be surprised if Luyang Academy hail all the way from Langan era. But speaking of that, I watched Minslip's video when I made this video, and there are a few things that came to mind when I watched that. It seems a lot of these civilizations are, in some way, shards or fragments of the original civilizations. Gorabat being the best example because even though parts of it are being stored here, assuming this place is indeed Gorabat, the original kingdom is still laid in ruins in the middle of Sumeru. The gate to the city is still there, and what lies behind it is still there. What lies in the Temple of Space is likely the important shard that made the civilization as is. I talked in my last video that Luna 5's main event is a huge foreshadowing of what's to come, and that event seems to be talking about Asmodeus' Temple of Space specifically. In that event, we learned that everything can play out as is and will continue to create events on its own without any intervention. On the third day, we learned that a nascent abyssal energy starts to form itself, creating a corrupted form of Dvalin because the Hexen Circle skipped the part where the Traveler purified Dvalin. What's played in the bubble is what is supposed to happen if the Traveler never came to intervene, because if it did, Dvalin would be saved as we see today. If it didn't appear, Dvalin would have died in any way possible, and it could be anything as long as Dvalin died from a battle. That event reminds me of what could possibly happen within the Temple of Space. Could it be related to Descenders? The answer is maybe. The reason I say that is because Historia was imprisoned here and is somewhat affected by Nibelung's corruption of the forbidden knowledge. However, I don't think that's the full story either, because I think it's more accurate to say that these spaces are places corrupted by the Abyss, but were then preserved in order to keep it at bay. Remember, when Nibelang returned to Tevat, the Heavenly Principles cast the Celestial Nails in order to purify Tevat from the Abyss. However, the side effects of it are the surrounding areas that will soon change in climate and will kill every single person in that civilization. We learned this from the Last Lantern Rite, and one civilization that survived this ordeal are the people of Langan, where Zibai sacrificed herself when the nail descended. These people then moved to Chenyuvale, the ruins of Langan became the inverted city under the chasm, and the people of Liyue are basically descendants of these people. You might find it strange why these people are allowed to live despite being affected by the Abyss. Well, I think that's because they are still within the course of what fate is supposed to give them. Remember, the Abyss are fates that never came to pass, or basically, the unchosen fates that made them turn into carrots. If people of Langan are allowed to live, creating Chenyuvale and eventually creating Liyue, then the people of Langan were meant to survive in the first place, or at least most of them that are not yet corrupted. Now this returns to Luyang Academy, because what if this academy exists somewhere within Chenyuvale, but was then destroyed and preserved by Asmodee in her domain? What if this academy discovered something forbidden and was not within the rules that the Heavenly Principles cast upon them? But speaking of that, this place reminds me of Zhongli's collaboration with the Sansing Dui Museum. I don't think those real-life artifacts are being placed here per se, but Zhongli might know a thing or two about this place, more specifically about these artifacts. The Temple of Space is also guarded by one of the Watchers named Melanta. As feminine as the name is, this Watcher is actually a guy. Regardless, Melanta states that everything in the Temple of Space exists only to be preserved, and everything related to change, evolution, or innovation are not allowed. Even when Asmodee is missing, Melanta continues to carry on his duty, which reminds me of the Mondstadt event again, where if it's left as is, the abyssal corruption inside the bubble will eventually become an actual abyssal energy, which of course is something that we don't want to happen. With that event being the base hint of this place, then it's possible Melanta's job is to prevent these spaces from being further corrupted by the Abyss. Now here's the interesting part. In one of the lines they revealed to us, Melanta states two interesting names, Creator and Nihil. The Creator absent and Nihil fallen from grace. And this somehow made me have many different ideas about who Melanta might refer to. First, we can assume that the Creator is very likely to be the Heavenly Principles and Nihil is Asmodee. The creator is one who created Asmodee to begin with, and Nihil, assuming it is Asmodee, was hinted to have betrayed the Heavenly Principles. I find this quite plausible because she is nowhere to be found until this day, and Historia said she has gone missing for a very long time now. It's good to assume that these civilizations, despite being potentially corrupted, were still nurtured by Asmodee in some way, since Melanta seems to have taken care of them, but have slowly driven to madness, possibly being the erosion affecting him. Another possibility, with the creator remains the same, but Nihil likely refers to the other Watcher. According to the voice actors, there used to be 2 Watchers in the Temple of Space. Will and the other one managed to flee and is now somewhere within Dolmanport. The title of this Watcher is called Fallen Vigil, and since Nihil is stated as fallen from grace, it's possible that the person being referred to is this Watcher from the start. Now, from the way they talk about this place, I don't think the Temple of Space is complete. If the place itself is complete, then at least the story is not yet complete, because I feel like the whole area feels way too important to be left as is, let alone the loading screen change into a different area that looks way too similar to Asmodee's domain. If I can predict, this place might have a different event, just like in an Economia, where they have an event map of the same place. Considering this is a world quest, I personally don't have very high expectations on the main narrative. I'm very sure we'll get a lot of interesting lore, but so far from world quests we obtain from this game, none of them are really that not worth it to make a video on. Sure, I make some here and there, but a lot of the time, they center around an NPC that is usually not that relevant for a very long time. Most of the time, the important bits came from the readables, which is something that I honestly expect from these quests, but I could be wrong. However, I can say something about Zeitlin, which based on the lines and how she can travel to the Temple of Space, it's very likely that she is not an ordinary NPC either. Judging from what the voice actors said and how Melanta talks about this place, not just anyone can enter the Temple of Space, which makes sense because if that's the case, everyone would have discovered this place way sooner than it should be. Zeitlin, on the other hand, is able to enter, and according to Laban, anyone who visits the sanatorium will remain in those enchanted hills forevermore. At first, I thought this sanatorium is related to the Tory and Urza the Drake because he once stationed in Mondstadt for victory diplomacy purposes, but knowing that this place is related to Asmodee, that makes this into a completely different idea altogether. Sanatorium is a specialized medical resort that is historically used for treating chronic illness like tuberculosis, or it can be used for long-term convalescence and rest. The spectrum is in the middle of a hospital and a spa resort because in the mid-90s, it used to be for specialized care that emphasizes fresh air and sunlight, but nowadays, it is used more as a spa and beauty treatment. It now makes sense why the sanatorium in Dolmanport is stationed on top of the hills, don't you think? The traveler even commented that people might have stayed in that sanatorium because it's very peaceful there, which of course could likely be a joke, but it seems there might be a little bit of truth in there. We just talk about the Anemo Archon statue being there, but I also find this spot to be quite peculiar. You might remember the We Will Be Reunited Archon quest where the defiled statue of the Seven was found somewhere in Liyue. Since Historia said Asmodee went missing, this could refer to 500 years ago during the Cataclysm, which should also be around the same time when Clothar Albury created the Abyss Order. When doing this, Clothar went to Mondstadt and stole one of the statues of the Seven, defiling it in order to create the Loom of Fate project. What matters is, what if that Anemo Archon statue is the replacement? Personally, I find it strange why there's even the statue here, and Asmodee likely knew the statue was stolen in the first place. Now here's an interesting idea. Like I mentioned just now, I personally theorize that Asmodee likely kept a lot of these civilizations within her domain, and if my guess is correct, one of them is likely to be Gurabat. In the God's Limits trailer, we also learned that the place of the first few minutes is within one of Asmodee's cubes where Rheindotter created an experiment humans to find Asmodee's whereabouts. We also learned something very interesting about this. Asmodee's cubes can be found during the Cataclysm and when the Irminsul tree in Sumeru was corrupted. There has been one of the less popular theories within the community that Asmodee's new master might be our twin. I actually talk about this in one of my videos, but I never really buy into that idea. However, with the new map that we'll receive very soon, I'm starting to find that theory might have a little bit of truth to them, because what if Asmodee is using the twins' power to indeed revive Ka and Via? Not too long ago, I watched a video from Cat with Blue Hat's video talking about how Ace words is a huge foreshadowing why only through eternity are you closest to the heavenly principles.
Only through eternity are you closest to the heavenly principles.
Because when you think about it with how the Abyss works, what she said is right. I highly recommend you to watch his video, by the way. Very high quality stuff as usual from the Lord King himself, and what he said are also things that I am aligned with. Let's just take a small example. I made a video talking about Columbinus' strange birth logic before, and one of the paradoxes I mentioned is how the heavenly principles likely know Columbinus' birth, because when you think about it, technically, Columbina is not 500 years old, but rather way older than that. This means everything that we are experiencing right now are within the heavenly principles and Celestius' calculations, because everything has to be in one single linear line. When Neuvillette became the new ruler of Fontaine, the heavenly principles did not wake up, and it went the same when the Frost Moon returned to Teyvat. Theoretically, neither of those things should have happened. But it did, and the heavenly principles did nothing about it. Well, it happened because the heavenly principles and Celestia knew that it would happen as per their calculations. They even let the Fatui do whatever they needed to do, and I believe they are destined to fail anyway. So, let's just take this into account. If Asmodee is helping our twin, then it makes sense why no one is able to find her, because she needs to stay hidden from the heavenly principles' watch. But if you ask me, this attempt is futile, so she likely has something else at the plan. Teyvat has experienced 3 samsaras as per the Narcissan Court's orders note, and right now we are experiencing the 4th, named Kron Aria. Despite the naming talking about passivizations, these are only code names that the order gave. Regardless, at the end of Teyvat's current samsara, a new one will replace it and restart to the very beginning. To break it, the traveler needs to stop their ascension as a god, which is what's stated in Cat's video. This kind of reminds me of the Era Nova in Amphorius, where the only way to really complete it is by defeating Iron Tomb, then the true Era Nova would finally happen. As a result, the samsara stopped, the scepter was destroyed, but everyone except Cyrene exists in the book called As I've Written. The new world of Amphorius is currently a seed of a new planet that will soon be reborn in the future. As to when that will happen, there is no clear answer, but let's be real, it will be back eventually, considering the chapter is 8 out of unknown, meaning Amphorius is not yet over, and the Planicordia chapter will involve every single Elation related character, which in this case, the Titan of Trickery Zacharias and Cypher will make their comeback anyway. What I'm trying to say is that reviving Khaenri'ah is likely related to how Teyvat's chapter will conclude. Asmodee is likely preserving the memory and space of Khaenri'ah, and if her capturing our sibling is to negotiate, then she likely made the deal with the twin to do something about it. Back then, I found this theory less plausible, but as we go throughout the game, I am positive that Asmodee is indeed working with our sibling to recreate Khaenri'ah. With that being said, this is where our video ends, and I'm excited for the new update. What are your thoughts about this update? Let me know in the comments below. Jana!